What's up guys, Marcus here from Studio One Expert, and in today's video we're going to be having a look at a product review. So I've got myself a copy of Revolution by Wave Alchemy, and what Revolution is it's a contact instrument where they've sampled 14 iconic different drum machines. So where a lot of people these days are doing digital recreations of some of these analog drum machines, the approach that Wave Alchemy have taken is a more authentic approach of actually deeply sampling all these different drum machines through various different signal chains. So we've got tons of character and tons of different options in terms of our creative palette. Now, I'm a big fan of sampling, so I really appreciate this approach because there's an authenticity that you get when you have sampled instrument that sometimes is not there when you're playing some of these emulations that are done in the digital realm. This is, first of all, this is a monster, but it sounds great. So I'll just go ahead and I'll play a pattern really quickly that's just loaded up in the factory default here. So just a fantastic sounding drum machine. So we have our mixer over here where we've got these different options. And as you can see, we have volume, we've got pan, we've got delay 1, and some reverb. Now, if we click on this over here, we've got these different options in terms of our delay and reverb. So it gives you the option to choose between 2 delays and 2 reverbs. Now, on each one of these sounds over here, these samples over here, we can also choose between different kits. So we can customize a kit to our liking. So for example, if I wanted to build a kit that had, an 808 kick, like over here, and I could adjust the decay on this. I can adjust my character. So just tons of different options in terms of creative sculpting. Tone. You can really go to town with this. And then if I wanted to have something different for my snare drum, or if I wanted to swap out my snare drum too, I could choose something entirely different as well. So just tons of options. And we've got a ton of different presets. So we've got all of our drum machines over here. So for example, we could go with, let's go with 808 mastered. And now this would be an 808 across the board here in terms of all our instruments over here. And that's a preset that's gone to mastered on the character. But if I wanted to swap out something, for instance over here, I could change this if I wanted to. If I wanted to change this maybe to tape 2. And they all have just a subtle, slight difference. So you can load up whatever you want, build your own custom kit, whatever you want to do. Now, we've also got a library over here with a bunch of different grooves that have been pre-programmed and sequenced. So I've got my DAW synchronize mode enabled over here. So if I press play, I can load one of these and we can hear it through this kit. Just tons of different options in terms of if you wanted to use these as a starting point or whatever the case is. Now we also have a user area over here where I can save and load them. And then we've got some legacy patches that are from some of their previous instruments. So well worth checking out some of these over here as well. Okay, so that is in terms of loading some grooves and going through some different kits. Like I said, there's so many different kits over here, hybrid kits, process kits, digital kits, analog kits, specific drum machines, and the different characters that we have over here. It's incredibly deep, and you really just have to go through and listen to some of these, but I gotta say they sound absolutely fantastic. So the next area I wanna have a look at over here is besides our basic sample control, like we have over here. Depending on what character you have dialed in, we may have some different options. So for example, here on tape 1, you can see that they've gone really deep in terms of how they've sampled them over here. And we can do things like adjust the pitch as well. So just tons of options to check out here. And then when we click on some of these parameters, there's some little hidden features like we can change the filter types and stuff like that. So the next thing I want to have a look at here is the built-in sequencer. So this, in my opinion, is an area that they did things really well. So we've got our traditional 2-page step sequencer over here. So if you're comfortable and familiar with working like this, you've got a pattern that's already been programmed out. Let's load something that's blank. We could start from scratch and we could just start programming out a beat. We could bring in our snare drum now and go back to our bass drum. We could go to page 2 and we could just program something out this way. And then if we wanted to, we also have a global view. So if we click this sequencer tab, now we've got this global sequencer. And this is more of a bird's eye view. And this is the way that I prefer to work, but I know some people are very efficient with a traditional step sequencer. Now I've also got some cool shortcuts that are available here. So for instance, if I hold down Option and click anywhere within one of these instrument lanes, I can preload a preset pattern that they've come up with that will go with this drum kit. So that sounds pretty good to me right there. Now I can also adjust this further by drawing in my different elements over here. And then we've got some other options where I can do things like, for instance, I can do a global accent by clicking Option or Alt and clicking on one of these downbeats. Now I've done that very, very easily. And we can adjust the global swing value. So if I wanted to bring the swing up, or I could bring it down, and I can go to -100, so more of a shuffle. And then command clicking or control clicking will reset. Now something else that we have over here is you'll notice if I go ahead and I try to draw something in on hi-hat 3, that it automatically kills or chokes the previous hi-hat. That's because we have the choke groups over here. So if we go to choke, you can see that choke 1 is assigned to hi-hat 1, hi-hat 2, hi-hat 3. So you don't have to worry about anything. It's automatically handling things in the back end of the sequencer. So really, really handy. Now, in terms of how you want to handle things, you also have the ability to play things in manually. So if that's something that you wanted to do, for instance, I could go to pattern 9 over here, and I can enable this little mode over here, which allows me to record things. And now I can actually play things. So I could do a combination of playing things in live, drawing things, using some of these shortcuts that we have, like holding on the Option key to give myself, just a random pattern that's a preset pattern. And if I don't like this, I can very quickly clear it out by command clicking and hold down Option to get a new pattern. And get my global accents over here. Add a little bit of swing, maybe too much, pull it down a notch. And I want to add some more hi-hats. Now, once you've got your patterns going, you've essentially got two different choices. So the way that they've designed this is that we can trigger the different patterns by just programming in essentially the MIDI keys that are triggering these patterns, which in this particular case, they start at, I think, F2, and they go up from there, F2 being pattern 1, and then they move up all the way to pattern 12. Or if you would rather, and you wanted to, further manipulate and further edit the MIDI in your DAW, then they've got this mode over here. So if I take this out of DAW sequencer mode, I double click here, you'll see these 3 dots go solid. Then what I can do is I can simply just drag and drop this. So now I've taken this pattern over here that I've created, and now it's available for me to edit in my DAW. And now it's triggering from my DAW timeline. And we're triggering that in the actual instrument. So then what I could do is, let's just go ahead and close this for a second, is I could, for instance, take all of this MIDI, and if I wanted to add my swing from here, I could do that here. And I could edit things like my velocities or whatever I wanted to do. So I could select all of these over here and bring them up and, tons of different control, tons of different flexibility in terms of how you want to work and different ways to work. But I think the thing with this particular instrument is really about how fantastic it sounds. The drum samples, to me, are done extremely well. They're recorded well. There's lots of different options. You've got tons of customization in terms of the flexibility of creating your own kits. If you wanted to create a hybrid kit yourself where you're swapping out different elements from different kits with different types of character. We've got a library full of all these grooves here from the factory presets that come within Revolution and some of the legacy ones from Wave Alchemy stuff. They all sound great. You can start off with one of these. You can build your own from custom. We've got these really cool shortcuts that allow us to sequence together our edits very quickly. We can swap these out. We can change them. We can very easily change how many steps we're using. We can copy patterns from one to another so that we can randomize them and change things. And then again, like I said, we've got our drag and drop if we wanted to work on things in Revolution and get them done further along the line in our DAW and, mult them out that way. That's another option. Now, in terms of the output capabilities as well, we have two different options. So we've got master, where these are all coming out the same output, but we can also enable a multi-out setup, which we would have to come in here and I'd have to go to my outputs, and I could, very easily just enable a bunch of different outputs. And then once I have those outputs enabled, then I can map each one of these outputs from each one of these drums. I could map them out so that it's a multi-out instrument. And then, of course, we would just come into Contact and we would, choose whichever outputs we wanted to pick up in our DAW of choice. And then we'd have a little bit more control in terms of these coming back into our mixer or our console discreetly. So what are my final thoughts on this? Well, I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think they've done a brilliant job. The sampling is incredible. It sounds great. It's really easy to use. You can sequence in multiple different ways. You can create different sequences very quickly. And furthermore, if you wanted to further edit these sequences in your DAW, it's very easy to get them drag and drop MIDI sent over from Revolution into your timeline so that you can work on them further. That's why this instrument is going to be getting editor's choice from me. I think it's fantastic. I think it's really a one-stop shop for somebody who's just getting into this and wants to look for a plugin that they can turn to that has lots of different variations and has them covered for some of these different drum machine sounds. I think this is absolutely fantastic. So great job to the guys at Wave Alchemy. Editor's choice for me. And I hope you guys got something from this, and I'll talk to you later. Cheers.